We spend the first year of a child's life teaching it to walk and talk, and the rest of its life to shut up and sit down. There's something wrong there. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Recruitamentary. Empowering your employment. Featuring our guest, Nathan Knoll. And today, we're going to have another special guest from iFuse Solutions, of all places, is going to be the Executive Director and CEO, Nathan Knoll. Nathan, glad to have you on. Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
So for the listeners who really aren't super familiar with, obviously, what iFuse is about and how it came to be, like you and I are a little bit more privy to, what's it about and really what is its purpose in the job placement world?
iFuse Solutions is something I kind of came up with, not coming from the staffing world myself. It was kind of one of those things that I saw a pretty big need for someone with my skill set and kind of my background to kind of enter staffing from a candidate's perspective, as well as from the client's perspective. So I had a unique kind of view of things. And quite honestly, when I got into it, I didn't know exactly what all I was getting into. And I really like to do things that way. I mean, I did my research. Obviously that, but, I didn't go work for some of the bigger firms. Like a lot of people probably start staffing firms. That's what they did for years. And I come from it. I was an IT guy. I did consulting. I worked for hospitals in my career, for insurance companies, as the in-house IT person. And, as my career kind of grew, I either was being recruited for other jobs or I was sitting in a seat where I needed to utilize recruiting and staffing firms. So a light bulb kind of went off in my head and came up with iFuse Solutions. We wanted to distinguish ourselves as, we work strictly in that IT vertical. And like I said, just kind of, got into it. We're coming up on to start our 5th year here. And, the rest is history.
That's awesome. And, it's really cool when you do have somebody who was originally a candidate. Again, not from that recruiting body of work, if you will, just being familiar with really both sides of the operation. I just feel that it allows the merriment of finding a job and also just being realistic with goals. Because as you've mentioned, there are very, very large staffing firms that personal approach and multi-touch approach, it just doesn't happen. They don't have the time. They may have the resources manpower wise, but it just doesn't feel the same. So iFuse, I feel like just from the website and, talking with a couple of people and obviously having Aaron as one of our recent guests as well, it just feels different, at least to me. And I hope the same for candidates who do cross paths with you guys.
And I love hearing you say that it feels different to you, because that was my goal, Michael. I've almost made it a point not to go to these bigger firms and learn how I don't want to know the nuances of how they do things, because quite honestly, even when I was being recruited, I felt like there was pieces of the puzzle being missed. The people who were talking to me about, hey, this particular job, I want to put you in front of this client. I thought, I don't know that you're asking the right questions. I almost felt like, and maybe this is just the CEO in me, I felt like I could do a better job, and I guess a lot of times, a lot of businesses that in my mind are really successful come with that kind of attitude. Whoever founded it saw a need in the market and they went for it. I was lucky enough to, have just such a supportive wife and family that allowed me to do this. When I hear you say we feel different, that's kind of our mission. You hear that from a lot of different small businesses. They want to, they got to rise above the noise. I want to be different. So to actually hear someone that kind of touched and felt our company from the outside say it's different, hey, that makes me happy.
Well, I'm glad. And again, it's true words. And this is essentially why, I'm doing the podcast and essentially the series, because there have been just so many experiences for me in the industries that I'm in. I cover quite a few. I mean, design, marketing, business admin, there could be temporary contracts. And it really just feels like it's a cattle call. If you were in LA and you're an actor, hey, this would be right up your alley, except it's for actual, normal day-to-day employment. Just having so many bad experiences so quickly and so back to back for so many years, I have a lot of good contacts, and you seek out those people. I mean, it's the same thing when you go to a company and you deal with a manager or you deal with that specific branch. You're usually doing that because of the customer service that you're getting there. You can go to any branch of their bank or any of their grocery stores or what have you, but you go to that one, more often than not, probably because of location. But if you have the option of 5 or 6 of them in the area, there's a reason why you go to that one. We've had a couple of conversations, prior to this podcast. It's awesome. You know what I mean? You feel that. And when somebody actually wants to make that difference and take the lead, you went from, again, being a candidate, being recruited and going, hey, I can do better. We can do better as an industry, and setting forth and doing that. I mean, that's really commendable. And that's essentially what we want to do. We want to have better candidates. We want to have a better vetting process, and essentially just having everybody work. If you're working, people are getting jobs. It's a win-win for everybody involved. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I would agree. And, in business has always been, something that I really hold near and dear to me. I just have always been fascinated by the process behind it all. And when I was in IT as an engineer, I worked on like VMware type implementations or Windows type stuff. I never really got to touch the business side of it until I got into consulting. And once I got into that, I realized I could have a direct impact on my company's profitability. It was like sparks flew, man. I was like, oh my gosh, so I can be an IT guy and I can do business. Mm-hmm. And then when I, sought out staffing, it was that on steroids. It really drew me to it. But I will say this when it comes to business, because I do pay attention to different business practices. When you say that, it's very similar. Like if I've got a hardware store in town, and I've always believed this, and I preach it at my company, if I've got a hardware store in town, and when I walk in there, I've got people coming to me saying, how can I help you? And then there's another one across the street, and they almost dart down an aisle to not help me. That experience that you get at the one, I tell my employees, it comes from the top. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how a business can transform through good leadership of just practicing that customer service aspect. I mean, here at iFuse, I try to put that first, and I hope it's coming through.
Well, I mean, time will tell. You guys have been there for about 5 years. Got a couple of really cool people who I've actually crossed paths with. So I think you're doing a good thing so far, but again, having that trickle from the top effect, it is really critical. There is something that I've actually talked with somebody about recently about, the greatest lesson a boss can really teach is how to keep and compose themselves during an exceptionally hard loss or difficult time. Maybe you lose a good client or contract, or maybe just for whatever reason, something didn't work out. You had a bad Q3. I really would love to hear your thoughts on the statement and that thought process and why you would think that way.
So I'm not going to come on here and act like I'm perfect. I mean, I make mistakes. I'm just like everyone else. I learn from mistakes, and I try to relay that down to my staff as well. As I kind of go through our times, any new business, especially when you're new, things are going to happen that you don't expect. Business it's a tough world out there. So we just, like you said, try to be an example for your people. Let them know at the end of the day, everything's going to be all right. So we've been able to do that. I mean, we've had some bad quarters for sure. And in the beginning, I can't say I was perfect. I may come in and I'm completely stressed out, but at the end of the day, sit down with my people. And I would say that one thing that, because I was an employee, I always try to put myself as the owner of the company in their seats. And I've been there, and I look at it this way. When you're looking at a glass mirror, right? Like you see on the cop shows or whatever, on the one side you can see through, and on the other side you can only see a reflection. When you're the owner of the company, it feels like you can see through, but a lot of times your owners or your employees can't see you. They can see you from the outside, but they can't see everything that's going on behind the scenes. So, I try to have empathy for that, and know that when I was an employee, I couldn't see all the things that I am going through now, the people who own the companies I work for. And it's been eye-opening. Like I said, I'm not perfect, but I just try to do my best to put my employees first and let them know that everything's going to be all right. We're all going to work hard, and things happen in business, and let's band together and get through it.
Have your own recruiter or candidate story that you'd like to share with us? If you're listening on YouTube, comment below. Otherwise, feel free to email your experience to ask@recruitamentary.com. You can find our full conversation of this episode on YouTube at youtube.com/recruitamentary. Thanks for checking out this episode, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share the content. A Mike Tech Studios production.